Hi, welcome to my video. This is part of the free daily energy readings that I put out that is combined with tarot to bring a narrative to you to help guide you on your day, to give you something to recognize the energies that you might feel within, around you and within others. Take what resonates. It is general, so leave what does not. Much appreciation to everybody who's coming to this channel and appreciation for all of the new clients that I'm getting for readings in particular. There's energy work sessions also and spiritual guidance sessions too. So you can hit me up on truedivinemedia@gmail.com, or you can get me on Facebook, private messenger at truedivine44. So this is for the 26th of September 2020. So there's lots happening, isn't there? And I have to give my head a bit of a wobble. In that it's a process, and so sometimes you can get swept up a little bit. I am a truther. I like to seek truth. I'm a Gemini with an Aquarius moon and a Gemini rising, so it's pretty much my deal. But I do have to then realign myself, rebalance myself, practice what I preach a little bit. And so I had to do that last night, and remember the element work that I do, in that everything's based from elements first and foremost. So where maybe my emotions were getting a little bit unbalanced, where there was maybe fear, where my thoughts were a little bit too fast, a little bit too furious, where the fire wasn't really in the right place. And all in all, it came down to me needing to ground a little bit, going back to my basics, going back to what I know. So going through all of the list of elements, managed to rebalance myself in that way. And I hope I can help some of you guys do that today too. It's an important part of any day, any process, any week, any month. And right now it is imperative, because we want to be sending out a very powerful frequency of balance, wholeness, and love to counteract from within the spell work that is being cast over the many. So on the bottom of the deck, with this new Nostradamus deck that I'm falling more and more in love with, is the Seven of Suns. Yep, it's Seven of Suns. Got to remind myself a bit with this new deck. So this speaks of victory, huge victory, in that, but it's victory over something big. So on the collective stage, it would speak of victory over priesthoods, organized religions, things that have caused division, royalty, governments alike, elite globalists, actually not doing as well as they're trying to profess in mainstream media. Maybe that's why we're seeing some of the desperate spell work that we're seeing. So, it talks about us being able to have the fire, have that sun, have that passion in order to create, a real momentous victory. It talks about taking out things that have been rooted very deeply, and cleansing them with fire, bringing about a new reality, a new way of being. And so that is a huge underpinning energy of the day. Now, that's not to say that that can't be vicious sometimes. Fire is fire. You have to respect it. You have to respect the fire that you have within, and you also have to respect the fire that others have, whether they're in a higher or lower frequency. Because if you don't respect it, if you don't preempt it, it'll burn. So it's talking about being balanced still, and directing that fire, managing that fire. So from an individual standpoint, that would be from within. So where maybe your triggers are being pushed and you're feeling very, very passionate, whether that is that you are seeking a new love life even. Forget about the collective stage and what's going on, that your passions are really fiery, that you're wanting to be in a very passionate relationship. To get that victory, that has to be measured. You have to be able to manage that flame so that it doesn't burn another, and that it doesn't ultimately burn you. Also, with victories in your individual life, it's about challenging yourself to direct that fire, to direct the passion, to be able to achieve the goal. So you need to be able to set time aside. You need to be able to manage the air, your mental state. You need to be able to manage your emotions. You need to be able to keep that fire tempered to some extent to get the momentous change and victory that you want. On the bottom of the other deck, we've got the Fool card. Cycles beginning anew. Now, the Fool card isn't without its dangers. You know, sometimes it can be perilous on the Fool's journey, but the Fool does so well at staying balanced within all of that, staying balanced within all of the elements, being in true flow of life, to be able to gravitate towards where you're meant to be gravitating towards, because you're emitting the right frequency, because you're channeling those elements within. And so the Fool is very wise in that, you know, sometimes we just need to strip ourselves bare, forget about the environment that we're walking amongst within, and make sure that that environment just reflects our inner world, so that we are balanced, so the outside world ultimately becomes balanced. And even when it's not, because, you know, one person can change a heck of a lot by emitting the right frequency. But there are other people that, you know, aren't doing so well at emitting a peaceful, whole, blissful frequency, a love frequency. So, you know, it's not to say it's without its dangers, but somehow the Fool just doesn't get caught up in that. It might be all around him, it might be at his feet, it might be behind him, but it doesn't get caught up in that. It doesn't stop his cycle, his journey, his beginning. We're at the zero, it's the circle. And so it's that wheel in motion, is in flow. So the first card is the Chariot card, number 7. So we've got 2 7s, 14, 5, change, you know, point, precipice, point, you know, which way we're going to roll down the hill. You've heard me say it all before. So it speaks to this being the Chariot card in the Nostradamus deck. I'm not sure if you can see it properly there. 2 sort of robed figures holding a strange, very square-like object. And the Chariot is known as the cubic, you know, the square, the 4, a very strong structure to go forward, because the Chariot moves fast. So where things have maybe been held up in your personal life, or where things are being held up on the collective stage, many moving parts being involved, many chess players being involved, all of a sudden the Chariot needs to be able to move fast, and it does move fast. And it speaks to moving fast in the material world, reality changing real fast. And so you see this, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but you see this puff of steam on the bottom. And so, you know, the ancient ones had huge technologies that were propelled by steam. And so, you know, it speaks to the technologies that were able to move things fast, move big things fast, without too much of a struggle. You see this angelic type being coming from this cube object, and so it speaks of also the spiritual alignment, making your reality move and shift and change into whatever you're emitting your reality to be. And so with that being said, we've got the Star card in reverse to clarify. Now, this speaks to a few different things, and that the Star card in reverse, you know, wouldn't be balanced. It would be avoiding that inner world, avoiding that inner self, where wounds may be, where self-judgments may be, things that still need to be looked at, still need to be transmuted. We can't begin to think that we can expect a reality that we want around us if we are not willing to harvest and toss the soil within us, to look in the depths, to look in the corners, to make sure we are fertile for the fruits that we want. And so it's always from within, so without. So there's something that needs to be looked at here, because if you're looking at the Chariot card and it being a fast movement in reality, a shift in the reality that you experience, if you're doing it from an unhealed, untransmuted, tended to in a garden with the star card, then you know you might find yourself shifting fast into a place, into a reality that you do not want to see. So things have to be done in the right order here. So if you're trying to shift your reality, if you're trying to manifest your reality, and let's face it, we always are anyway, so we may as well do it with intent, then you know we really do need to look at that inner world and get that inner world balanced out, healed, transmuted. And all of you, I don't care what label you've been given, I don't care what diagnosis you've been given, you can look at these wounds, you can make yourself whole from within. There are things that you can do to, and the main thing is to face your inner self without fear, to stop being so afraid of your own judgment on you, to stop being so judgmental about yourself, and maybe about others. You know, if you haven't done this work, sometimes it's easier to project onto others the very work that you are avoiding doing. So look at that in your individual life. If you hear my words and you think that rings a bell in relationships, whatever the relationships might be, friendships, lovers, partnerships, business partnerships, whatever the relationship might be, if that rings a bell for you, then that will really help. Because if you're projecting constantly, then one, that is slightly abusive to your partner, whatever kind of partner that might be, but also it acts as a, it degrades you, because of course your partner eventually is going to get fed up with that. Eventually you are going to have that mirrored back to you. So it degrades your honor, it degrades you and who you are and what you're capable of, because you're so capable of this inner work, I can tell you that now. So, you know, don't project it onto others. We see a lot of projection on the collective stage, don't we, of even down to, and you know, I don't support one way or the other, I support myself and I try and support others by doing that, by being ethical, by being whole towards people. But you know, you see people externalizing onto other people, putting huge expectations onto other people, even onto the collective stage, like the savior here or the savior there, or and in the partnerships you see them and on the collective stage throwing mud at each other. You know, all of that projection, it degrades what we are and who we are. And we're seeing that degrading happening when we're seeing people on Twitter and on Instagram screaming because somebody they'd never even met had died. When we see people, you know, breaking up other people's properties and shouting, it's your fault for supporting such and such, or that's all projection. So you can see how it filters into the collective stage and ultimately affects us all. So it's very important not to project your issues onto somebody else. I guarantee you, if you're having trouble in your partnerships, it's all about you. And I would say the same to your partner. It's all about them. In that it always comes from within, whatever it might be, whether you're on the receiving end of abuse, that is projection. You know, you need to look at why you're putting up with that, why you're staying with that. There's something within you that is allowing that to happen, or whether it is you actually being the abuser and projecting onto somebody. You need to look inside you to see why do you feel too weak to look at yourself? Why are you projecting outwards rather than inwards? What is it? What got in there that gave you that fear? And so the next card is the completed world. And I love this card because it's so simple, but it's the world card in other traditional decks. And so this speaks of the vessel, the Holy Grail, the one cup. You see it's red inside, and it just represents the DNA, the history of the being. So this speaks to the being of the realm that we live upon. We're coming to an end of a cycle and a beginning of a new. What kind of DNA are we putting in that cup? We see on the collective stage lots of evidence to show that, you know, elite groups are trying to manipulate DNA, to change DNA, to make it less human to make it of a different design for various different reasons that I won't get into right now, but look into that. But in your individual life, what kind of things are you projecting from your DNA, from your being? Are you actually living the real you, the full expansive you? Because everything within this cup is held. Now, I said something on Wayne Steiger's program last night, and I don't know where I heard it, but I know I heard it, that there's enough energy that can be held in the space of a coffee cup that would cause a tsunami, and it's something similar to that. And he mentioned something far more eloquently and scientifically representing the same thing. So this cup has the capacity to hold such information, such knowledge. What is your cup holding? What is your vessel holding? What are you holding back from the world that is within your vessel? Because you want to come into this completed stage as complete and as whole as you can be, as expansive as you can be, so that you can enter into this next cycle that's coming in a way that is ahead, that is a promotion, that is something of a new experience for you, and you have all of the capacity to live it and expand even more because you've fed into your completed world. What is your completed world? What does it contain? It's this inner world is so important right now. To be able to project out the truth. And so we have clarifying this completed world card. We have the lovely King of Swords, this truth seeker, this truth teller, this intellect of a divine masculine energy, truth being spoken out into the collective. Now, you know, the world can seem really violent. Even a seed exploding out of its shell, out of its husk, can, if you do it in slow motion, it's both beautiful, but you can see that it's violent labor to bring a child into the world. The things that happen within the body are violent and moving and vicious and painful. And so some of these truths that are going to come out, you know, regarding what need to be shared, coming into the completed cycle, are going to be very difficult to bear. So you want to make sure that you have the capacity in your completed world, in your vessel, in your holy grail, to transmute and understand and still stand strong, as sturdy as this cup is standing on the ground here. It's not on rocky ground, it's earthed. You can see the brown earth beneath it, you know, it's grounded. These truths, you know, might be sickening to a great extent, but they need to be shared. Now, this King of Swords is a strategist. You know, sometimes it might seem like he is doing nothing at all, but he's waiting for the right moment. Sometimes it might seem that he's completing the exact opposite of what you would expect, but he's already strategized 10 more steps ahead to know which way the dominoes are going to fall. And so there's a lot of different things that need to have truth spoken into them. And so there's a lot of different moving parts. So that's going to come out. We're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to deal with that individually and as a collective. But this King of Swords knows that the truth does set you free, that the truth can bring you absolute and ultimate peace. Because whether you have known of these truths on the collective stage or in your individual life, consciously, your subconscious has still been having to live through it. Your subconscious has still been picking up on it. Your gut instinct in your individual lives and in on the collective stage has still been having to deal with it. And actually, it's far harder on the body to deal with something, especially when it's negative, in the subconscious, without being conscious of it, because you know that something's niggling away at you, you know that something's not right, but you know you can't quite put your finger on it, which sometimes is a bit more difficult. I've known a lot of people, myself included, that have either been born with illness or had illness, and they seem And they're not people actually that are in victimhood at all, but they've known that something's wrong with their body, and it's been like trying to find a needle in a haystack to find out what will help. And the ultimate relief sometimes is when a doctor can or a herbalist can tell you a name for what is going on. And from that point of view, it's not that these people, I'm necessarily saying some people do, but these people that I know have accepted that label and worn it as a badge of honor like some people do. It's that it's given them something to then research. It's cleared away the big haystack. The needle is there, and they've got all of that information again in this one vessel that they can dig into. And they can find remedies that really help. They can find therapies that really help. And so sometimes the subconscious knowing and the conscious sort of having that niggle and reacting to it with the adrenaline, the stress levels, anxiety, it's far easier, although it might be shocking at first, to have that truth both in our individual lives and on the collective stage, because then we can actually deal with it. We can help any people who have been adversely affected by it. We can be there, we can know where they are, we can find them, we know what to do. We have that initial name to go by, whether that is illness or whether that is a person, whether that is a category. It gives us something to sink our teeth into and dig back and really find a way to either ground it or root it out for good. So be aware of these truths and be aware that it is your job to stand firm in them. You know, the truth is the truth. And so we have to deal with it. We far better deal with it than struggling with it in our subconscious and not quite knowing why we're acting out in our conscious mind. So bear in mind with that, huge shifts with that, with the truth coming out. So we've got the Three of Stars next. And of course, this is the Three of Swords in the traditional decks. And you see the two arrows coming down from this cross. So if you picture this cross as the cross of the body, you know, the way that energy flows, but we have these arrows coming down, you know, they're not going up. And so there's deep sorrow here. Now, like I said before, life can seem beautiful and violent at the same time. A volcano can take your breath away. It can look so beautiful. It can look so expressive and passionate and explosive. Yet the ramifications of it can be very violent. So with huge shifts like this, with huge change like this in our individual lives, there are going to be coming up, especially today, some things that, you know, really do put those daggers through the heart, that really do make our consciousness feel like it's swooping down like those arrows. But look at those arrows in a different way. Look at them as swooping down to ground you in that the truth matters. And I think anybody that's going through this energy today would say that, well, yes, I've been having this suspicion for years or for the last 6 months, or yes, I've been avoiding this, I've been avoiding that inner healing for the longest time. And actually, yeah, this really hurts to actually have to face and know the truth, either about myself or about someone else or about what's been going on in the collective stage. But actually now I can deal with it. I can do something with that truth. I can shift my perception of it. I can make sure I'm stronger because of it. And so to clarify this card, we've got the Two of Pentacles. So again, it's the juggling of these two worlds. I feel that this is, in one instance, I know the Pentacles, so it's earth, it's the physical, but the subconscious and the conscious. So juggling between the two, but not quite facing either. And so you're juggling so much that, you know, if you don't have this shock to the system, if you don't have this truth from this King of Swords to complete a huge cycle, to give you a reality that you can really manifest from a whole place, then, you know, eventually you're going to get tired and you're going to drop a pentacle. And so that would come as the Three of Swords, you know, that it just hits you anyway because it needs to hit you. And so maybe you've been juggling for a little bit too long between two different realities, where you are and where you consciously want to be, or where you are and where you subconsciously want to be, or how you're living and how you subconsciously know you should be living. However that might apply to you, but it's time to stop juggling. Now, you see the infinity symbol that this is being made, the juggler is making by these Two of Pentacles. This shows that there's a balance, but if you see the way that it is, it's off to the side a bit. So juggle too long and an imbalance occurs. And everything is about balance right now, and temperance, measure. And so to bear that in mind, that it's time to decide what you want your reality to be. And regardless of what's going on in the collective stage, which is important to take note of, the main thing that you can do, and I know some of you will think this is airy-fairy spiritual stuff, but it actually is how it works, is to do the inner work on you. Because the frequency, the auras that I see on some people are so wide and so vast. The frequency that you emit from a whole place is so much more powerful, so much more potent, so much more changing of the environment around you in the physical than you know. And that happens for both higher and lower. Higher obviously having a much higher impact, a much greater impact, but you know, lower, we know that when we're in our lower frequencies, you know, it feels like one thing after another is happening to us in our physical reality, because, you know, we're emitting that lower frequency, so we're bringing it in, we're attracting it in, we're magnets, we're antennas, you know, we're part of this cycle, we're not part of, we're not separate to it. And so with that being said, remember that you can create the reality that you want to live in. And this is a time to be a warrior. You know, the going back to the Chariot card here, this number 7, 7 being the bridge number. One of my numbers, 4 and 7. It's the balance where we see the Lover's card being the balance of the inner world, the balance of the divine feminine, divine masculine, the union between two different people in some cases, that a decision needs to be made. The Chariot card is asking us to really measure. You know, I love driving fast cars. I love going fast on motorbikes. I love all of that. I love the balance of it when I'm going around a corner, either on a bike or in a car. I love the balance. I love how, you know, I'm changing the gears. I know when I'm dropping a gear, I'm giving myself that boost that I'm ready to take when I need to take it coming out of the bend. You know, the Chariot is, if you don't measure it, you break your Chariot up. Especially when you're not doing it, when you're doing it with a happy foot, you know, and it's, you know, it's too fast on the accelerator, but you haven't got your gears ready in place with this star card in reverse. So it speaks to us to really stepping up right now and proving, you know, proving our roots, proving our grit, proving our strength, and proving that we can really take on board knowledge and wisdom and apply it and measure out all of our elements in everything we do, because the time is now. The time is now. And for all of the negative stuff that is around, the more we ignore the inner work, the more we ignore what we would deem as the darker side inside of us, the more negative side inside of us, then the more we give permission to the negative in our reality in the outside world, Theodore, the more we give permission for that to still exist, because we are emitting that from ourselves, that we give permission for unresolved, unchiseled diamonds to exist within ourselves. So we give permission for that to create our reality on the collective stage. It's a mirror, it's a relationship. And so I hope that makes sense, because it's a really powerful message, and I hope I've conveyed it adequately. And I hope I've managed to inspire some of you. And I hope some of you can trust me enough to just do this, to give it a go, because I know if you can, I'm going to get some awesome messages to say, I did it. I did it. You know, I've created something out of nothing, but it's not nothing. It's that warrior inside of you willing to face self, even the darkest corners. Harness your elements, harness your power, and go forward into the reality that you want to create. Much love. Be balanced and be whole. Remember, if you want a private reading, hook up with me by giving me an email at truedivinemedia@gmail.com, or you can contact me on Facebook Messenger on a private message at truedivine44. You can follow on The True Divine on Instagram and Twitter. Much love from you. Yes? Wave. Bye. Cutie. Okay, much love.